Okay, guys, so today I am sitting down with Johna, and she is a somatic health and wellness practitioner that I had the pleasure of going through some trainings with, and we really connected. So I'm really excited to have her here today. Today, we're going to walk through kind of what you're putting in your body and how it affects you, the foods you're choosing to eat, but also how trauma and stress play a role in how your overall health is going. And so I just want to start it off by letting Johna share a little bit about what got her to this point.
Hello, Anna. Thank you so much for having me on today. Appreciate it. So what started my journey in healing is I ended up having a lot of gut issues that I wasn't really connecting the dots with early on. And just simply noticing from time to time how certain foods and the things I would drink was affecting me. And then I started having some pretty severe symptoms later on. And I was confused because I was eating like broccoli and cauliflower and, all the organic stuff and all, good lean meats and, fruits and vegetables. So I wasn't really sure what was causing my gut issues. I was like, there's no way I can't be having these gut issues because I eat so pristine.
Mm-hmm.
Then come to find out later on that it doesn't matter how well you eat, how much organic you eat. It really matters about how your body is absorbing what you're eating.
I see. So it's about each individual then. It's not just a blanket. This is organic. This is something we've told is healthy and good for us over the years.
Correct. Yes, it's a bio-individual framework.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So when you're working with your clients, being that it is very individual based, what is kind of the first step you take with them in diving into understanding what foods their body really can and cannot handle?
Yeah, thank you for asking that because it's super important. So I like to treat them as, which they are, the human that they are,
Mm-hmm.
and really ask them, certain questions about their story and their symptoms and the signs that they first noticed. Just because I can't eat broccoli and cauliflower doesn't mean somebody else can't. So really just trying to unpack and journaling, having them keep a food journal about what they're eating and how it's affecting them on a daily basis so that they can see if there needs to be things that are eliminated or things that need to be added in, and then keep journaling those foods and drinks to see how it's affecting their body.
Mm-hmm. You said something interesting. Obviously, when you're journaling and you realize, I'm just going to roll with your example here, broccoli is affecting your body, right? And so you eliminate that, but you also mentioned adding things in. What does that look like in the process?
Yeah, so for me, that looked like taking out the broccoli and cauliflower, and I was adding in carrots and green beans and zucchini, which I had absolutely zero side effects from. So when I noticed that about myself, I was like, okay, my body likes these things. And also, I just want to mention that I was diagnosed with SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And a lot of times with certain vegetables and just foods in general, the bad bacteria likes to feed on those sugars that are even in vegetables and fruits. So those react differently in each person that even has SIBO. So SIBO patients usually follow a low FODMAP diet.
Okay.
And gives them choices because everybody is so different of what they can have and not have.
Right. No, that makes sense. So you're saying you're still able to eat a food that's going to provide you the same nutrients that broccoli would have or cauliflower would have, but you're adding in something else that's still able to provide for your body.
Yeah. And still trying to eat as much of the rainbow as you possibly can, minimizing those symptoms. And if that looks like somebody can have 2 bites of Brussels sprouts, but they can have a lot of green beans, then that's exactly what that is. It's really tailoring the experience for each individual client and person.
I know we talked about at the beginning, you shared, I'm eating clean, I'm eating vegetables, why is this happening to me? And in a conversation we were having last week, I was like, oh yeah, oat milk. And you're like, that's good, but have you read the ingredients on the back? And it just got me thinking, because in my mind, I'm like, well, that's better for me than regular milk. So do you have some ingredients that people can be looking for when they're looking at different healthy products in the store that are maybe some red flags or items to watch out for?
Yes. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of the partially hydrogenated oils to look out for. Definitely staying away from those. Anything that is, people think because they do a sugar-free diet or low fat, that you go and get to the store and you get, say, low-fat cottage cheese. What they don't realize is that the fat has been replaced with sugar. So looking out for those that doing the low fat or sugar-free stuff isn't exactly, beneficial in the long run. And also there's a lot of sugar alcohols out there that you'll see on labels these days. Erythritol is one of them. And those can definitely impact the gut and impact the way we feel, depending on how your body reacts to them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So
I was having this conversation with, I honestly think it was my mom, and I was just saying, sometimes because we're getting the low sugar or the non-fat, it's not always great, and to actually sit and read the label and understand what we're putting in our body as the substitute for that, because is that worse than what we're trying to eliminate?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So as you're talking about this and we're talking about your gut and how that affects things, how important do you feel like your gut is in your overall health?
Super important. It really is. It's one of the baselines that I start at with clients, is really digging into what their digestion is like and how they're feeling in that area, like what are their symptoms that they're having just in that area, and to also connect the gut brain axis too. So there's, big correlation there, scientifically backed, that there is a connection there. And I like to take it a little step further. I like to say gut, brain, body, spiritual connection. So I think all of it is connected.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think when we hear the word gut, there's obviously an initial thought about what that means and what symptoms, but can you share some of the symptoms that you've seen in people that it's like, maybe I wouldn't think that's coming from my gut not being healthy?
Yeah. A lot of people who have gut issues have anxiety, depression, that they wouldn't necessarily connect it to the gut. They might just feel like, hey, I'm just stressed out. Mm-hmm. But it can be directly connected to the gut. Other obvious symptoms might be gas, bloating, belching, things of that nature. Joint pain, rashes like eczema, psoriasis, rosacea.
Yeah, those are all definitely things that when I either have experienced it or know people that have, my first thought wouldn't be to go to your gut health. So it's really interesting to hear some of the other areas that are impacted by it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know from speaking with you, and I didn't know this before speaking with you, how it's not just about what you're putting in your body, but it's also about what you're dealing with, right? So trauma and stress, and that's really a huge impact on your body. And so can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. Trauma, when our bodies get stuck in trauma, and our bodies hold on to it in certain areas, and it's different for everybody, but it can hold on to it even down into the cellular level. And when we talk about digestion and that, parasympathetic nervous system coming online, whereas that's our rest and digest. If we have unresolved trauma, and we're constantly in a trauma loop, and we're constantly shooting up our cortisol levels and activating that sympathetic nervous system, that keeps us in our fight and flight freeze response constantly. And what that does is it takes all the blood supply from the gut and it pushes it out and away from the gut. So then digestion just stops in that moment. So when we need to digest our food, and as we're, eating and trying to break down these nutrients so that the body can use what we're eating, it needs to have a lot of blood supply there in order for that to happen. And we're constantly stuck in trauma or the fight or flight response. It's not able to do that. So yeah, trauma is huge when it comes to gut issues and our body being able to use the fuel that we're giving it.
Yeah. Wow. That's really interesting to me because, again, not something that you think would affect that, but it really is. Your body is so connected. And when one thing is going on, it definitely affects another. So when you're working with your clients through the trauma side of it, how does that work?
So that works in a very somatic sense. That works in a sense of getting the client to get into their body, dropping their mind into their body. And one of the ways that I might do that is simply taking them through a process of, when you eat this or when you drink that, how do you feel afterwards? And that allows them that very first approach to really feeling into their body. A lot of people aren't used to feeling into their bodies, or it might not feel safe to feel into their bodies. So they rather feel outside of it, So allowing them to feel that safety, to be able to go inward and really check in and see what's going on in there. So that would be like a first approach. And then another approach that I like to help clients through is I'm a certified trauma-informed breathwork facilitator. And I take them through a breathing session, and we are able to unpack a lot of the trauma there, or some of the trauma, depending on how safe they feel in their body. Again, it's all about safety. And see if their body can release some of that trauma so that digestion can come into play more for them.
Right. Well, that's awesome to be able to do that. And what is that, as you're working through this with clients, what are the results you're seeing on the other side of this?
So it's, I wish I could say it was a quick fix, but it's not. And I just want to name that there's really no quick fixes out there. But it's really diving into the person's personal journey and exploring, what's there, what they're willing to let go of, and what their intention is or desired outcome is on the other side. And I just have to name that it really depends on the person. Their outcome depends on the person, on how much effort and work they're going to put into really taking care of their body and being able to see what are the different issues that could be causing their signs and symptoms. So, but if I had to pick out some benefits of this, I would say a lot of, their signs and symptoms go away. The gas and bloating, belching, those things become a lot less. And anxiety and depression lessens with it too. And they're able to think more clearly. Like some people might have brain fog as one of the symptoms. And the brain fog, you can literally see that dissipating as they work with me. So it's really neat to see the process that they're, we have an amazing internal pharmacy, and our bodies are full of so much wisdom, and it actually knows how to heal itself. We need to give it the right tools to do that.
Right. I think the right tools and time is huge. And I know you shared at the beginning, you're like, it's not a quick fix, right? And that's another thing I wanted to bring up with you today. We definitely live in a society right now that wants quick fixes. We want things ASAP. We order things on Amazon and get them the same day, right? We're very demanding. And so, what is your opinion kind of on these fad diets that will say it's going to be quick, or people are switching from, and today they're keto and tomorrow they're not, and all these things? What's your opinion on all of that?
Yeah. My opinion on it is I don't personally subscribe to one particular diet for each person, because um, each person's, puzzles are different. Their pieces to their puzzle is different. So if a paleo is going to work good for somebody that has certain symptoms and not for somebody else, then we work through those challenges and we switch things up. And those a lot of those diets were, formed to stay on for a certain time period when symptoms get better. And then to, if it's, okay for the body to accept those nutrients again, to be able to slowly introduce that again to the different foods. So the body can get used to the different nutrients coming back in on a very titrated, process. So yeah, I would, and then in regards to supplements, there's so much of that going on too, right? Like, take this supplement, cures this, cures that, but not always. Does it work for some? Yes, but we really need to get back to basics in what's going on in the digestive system in order to allow those nutrients and supplements to do their job. When you heal the gut, you can add these things in, and it's going to create a better framework for those supplements and nutrients to be able to, give exactly what it needs to the body.
Yeah. So being able to heal your gut first before introducing some of those things, so it really can do what it needs to for your body, and your body can absorb that.
Yeah. And sometimes, supplements are brought on to help with gut healing. But the first place that we need to look is actually the food. What are we putting in our body? The food, the drinks, things of that nature. That's really the first spot that needs to be looked at.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about reintroducing foods. And so that was going to be another one of my questions. Some people, it's like, oh, do I have to cut this food out forever now? And what does that look like? So I guess there's two parts to my question. The first part is, how do you keep your clients motivated to not, slip back and be like, well, I really love broccoli and I'm going to have some today. But also, how do you go about reintroducing it, and at what point?
So again, it depends on the person and what they're going through. But yeah, if somebody is super passionate about, eating their broccoli and that's the food they really love, or let's just pick chocolate, because who doesn't love chocolate, right? It comes down to a sense of, what do I feel like if I don't have this food? And what do I feel like if I do have this food? And when the desire for the feeling good overrides the desire to have that particular food, that's when you have a win-win.
I know we were talking a little bit about that last week as well, and in the alcohol sense, right? Like, there's a way that we both got to experience with no alcohol for a certain period of time, and we knew how our bodies felt. And I recently went to a wedding and I had a drink and I felt horrible the next day. And it definitely is to the point where it overrides it for me. I'd rather not feel that way than to consume it and enjoy the taste or enjoy the moment that it's in. I'd rather feel good after.
Yeah. See, you somatically went into your body, checked in, and said, okay, this isn't making me feel good. I need to either cut down the amount of drinks you have or just cut it out completely, because your body is sending you messages. Our body sends us messages. The thing is are we listening to what it's telling us?
Right.
Are we respecting what our body wants and what it doesn't want?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Ooh. So as kind of we're wrapping things up here, I just wanted to ask if somebody's listening and they're like, I wonder if what's going on with me is related to my gut, or whether that's food or stress or trauma, where would you suggest starting for them?
First, we would start with an assessment so that I could get a clear picture of, what they're feeling, their signs and symptoms are, possibly having them start to journal what they're eating and bringing on that somatic piece for them so that they can start to initially get used to checking in with themselves, because that's really where it starts. And that's really where you start connecting the dots. People know that they don't feel good, but they don't know why they don't feel good.
That makes sense. So if they did feel compelled to reach out and begin working with you, that's where you would start. But you would also recommend, let's say they're feeling this on their own, they're not ready to reach out, just beginning that journaling process and really tracking what they're putting in their bodies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it definitely starts there. And then working with me would, take them through a process of eliminating, adding in, and I just want to mention that we don't eliminate everything all at once. We don't want to put the body into this like shock sense, or demotivate the person like, oh my gosh, I can't have this anymore, that anymore. So we do eliminate certain things right off the bat, because that are kind of the main, there's a few main areas that we look at for inflammation purposes. Right. And we want to take out like dairy and gluten, things of that nature, right? So just really starting at those, first initial things to get them started.
Right. And I know this question is probably going to be, it depends on the person again, but I do want to give people an idea of what your process looks like and how long it might take. So if someone were to come to you and begin your program, what is the timeline for that?
Yeah, good question. And yes, it does depend. But, and I want to say it depends in how invested they are in their own, journey with this. How curious are they about their symptoms and about getting well, and really diving deep into, like I said, the inflammation piece, digestion piece, and then also looking at genetics too is another factor that we would, get into. So lengthwise, it's just dependent upon how fast or how slow the signs and symptoms start to go away or change. We could get rid of one thing and then say they take a certain supplement or they're eating a certain food, and then all of a sudden they start having a new symptom. Okay, then we look at that. Okay, what's bringing on those new symptoms? So a lot of it is about shifting and changing too, and really diving deep into the story behind it all, their story. For everybody.
Right. Yeah, that's huge. And I hear what you're saying, and being that, there is the process that you're going to walk through with them, but it's also how committed they are, because at the end of the day, it's their body, it's what they're choosing to do and what drives them to want to feel better.
Exactly. Yeah, it's giving themselves permission to go through this, journey with themselves and with me, and being in a state of acceptance of what's going to come up during the process, and just how to deal with those things that come up, whether it's a physiological sign or symptom, an emotional sign or symptom, and knowing that they have support, support from in their own environment of, their own, say, family or friends or mentors, or with myself. Just knowing that they're not on this journey alone is huge.
Yeah. You don't realize it, I think, when you're going through it, and you can very much be like, okay, I'm going to start cutting things out and I'm going to start journaling. But that support that you get from being able to work with you or having really supportive people in your life, whether that's your friends or your family, the impact that that makes on you. Because like I shared, I had cut out alcohol for a while, and I'm definitely one of those people who, if somebody asked like 3 times to have a drink, I'd be like, okay, sure. Yeah, why not? But I finally got to a point where I shared with my family and friends, this is why I'm choosing not to drink. And then they stopped, right? And it was okay if I went out with them and drank water. It wasn't crazy, but they didn't put the pressure on me, knowing that sometimes it's very easy for me to be like, okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I just want to mention something about, people, when they go through eliminating things in their diets, it's like there's, or if, say, they mess up and they eat something that they know their body doesn't want,
Right.
there's a lot of shame and guilt and judgment, not just from themselves, but from other people too. It's like, if you're out drinking like yourself, it's like, why aren't you drinking? You get that from your family and friends. Like, what's wrong with you? Right? Like, there's something wrong with you because you're trying to listen to your body.
Right.
So what I like to tell clients is that it's really comes down to that it's really learning the biochemistry around food and drinks, that of how it affects you, and not placing any shame or guilt or judgment on what you are eating or aren't eating.
Yeah, that can be very hard, I feel like, in today's society in general. And again, having someone on your team that's going to help hold you accountable and walk through it with you, I think helps take away that guilt or that shame in that process, because I definitely see how that could happen a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Johna, thank you so much for sitting down with me today. I hope that if there's some women out there that are going through this, they'll see this message and be able to start their journey on healing their gut. I will be putting Johna's email in the description below the video. So if you do feel compelled to reach out to her, ask her some questions, please do that.
Thank you for having me on today, Anna. I really appreciate it.